And welcome back. Will Worsham joins us now for this week's Speaking Legal Discussion. Thanks for coming in. Have you finished your rib and everything?
I finished. I'm good.
It
was a great day for you to be here, right?
It really was.
You
Yeah.
ready for the question then?
Sure.
All right. My father passed away without a will. Does his estate still have to go through probate?
Well, if he has an estate, the answer would be yes. You have to get through probate in order to get those assets distributed.
Right.
Just not having a will doesn't keep you out of probate. Probate's kind of the default. That's what happens. So it would go in what's called an intestate, because there's no will.
Okay.
That's what it's called. So that means it's going to be distributed according to the laws of Missouri, which, generally speaking, people tend to agree with. The law says it's going to go to your heirs, your spouse, your kids,
Right.
their kids, your mom and dad, your sister, your brother, aunts and
The
uncles.
division most people expect is coming their
It
way.
really does
Yeah.
go the way people expect. The only problem with that is you don't have any control over it. The law is going to say where it goes, and you got to go through the expense and hassle of the probate, and that just takes time because you have to leave some things open for periods of time for other claimants to come in and claim against it. So it's not an ideal situation. Now, I did say if he has an estate.
Yes.
So it's possible if you die and you really don't have any assets at all, there's no reason to open a probate estate. And there's even a procedure called a small estate affidavit, where you can take, if it's just a very small amount of money,
Right.
then you can go through the small estate affidavit process and not have to open a full-blown probate.
Where do you go to
estate.
start this?
Probate court.
Okay, you
Yeah.
just go
or
to
a lawyer's
probate
office,
court,
really, is probably the better place to go.
So when something like this happens, hopefully you'll have sort of the conversation prior to, and maybe
Absolutely.
you'll get all this stuff figured out. But if you don't, call a lawyer, go to probate court, and then just they'll instruct you on how to proceed.
Yeah,
Because it
that's
just
right.
is scary, and you're going through probably what is a very emotional time anyway. So
Yeah.
that's a lot to think about.
No, absolutely. And the probate estate is going to be open, an executor or administrator is going to be appointed, and then that person is in charge of complying with all the requirements of the court as far as providing an inventory of the assets, proposed distribution, and getting it all taken care of that way.
Now, I've heard, many times you hear about contesting a will. Can you contest probate?
Well, you could, but it's going to be pretty straightforward as to who's going to be taking under an intestate succession. So you would have to come in and say, wait a minute, I'm not being listed here, and I'm supposed to be. If the plan didn't include you, and you should have been, then you could
But
intervene.
Dad said I could have the car.
You could do that. That probably wouldn't be very successful, just because you can't do things verbally
Right.
with your estate plan.
If you have all of these papers in order, if you have titles and you have deeds and you have all of these things, is it up to you to go and get those collected, or does the person in charge of the probate have to go look with a fine-tooth comb to figure out?
Okay, when you say you, who are we talking about?
Like a family member.
A family member. Well, it would probably be incumbent upon you to produce whatever you had. What you could,
But
sure.
then will you get help from the person who's helping?
Well, they're
with the
ultimately
probate?
responsible for doing that. So they would
Okay.
come to you for doing that. And actually, they're going to be able to claim a fee for doing that as well as an executor, percentage of the estate.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. How is the cost figured, I guess? is
Right.
what I'm trying
The
to-
statute specifies a percentage of the estate can be paid to the executor or to the attorney helping them.
And to the courts?
And the court's going to get their fee as well. Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Can that vary?
It's set by statute. I suppose a judge could declare something other than that.
I mean, in other words, if this is a 10-year deal or if it's a really, really
Right.
long time, it might vary a little bit.
Sure. I think that the judge could do that if you asked for it. The judge would have the power to do that, and then it would just be up to the court.
Now, you have plenty of people, you hear it, make out a will, always have a will, always. But if you have a small estate, and if you can call it an estate, just a small amount of property, is it even worth the time to get involved in that way?
Well, I don't recommend a will anyway for most folks. If we're really talking
More of a
about estate
trust?
planning, we're going to want to have a trust. And then
Right.
a pour-over will is going to be part of that estate plan to make sure anything you forgot to put in your trust
Yeah.
gets put into your
Dragged
trust
in, yeah.
through probate. That's a pretty simple process when something like that happens too.
How long does it take you to put one of these together, just a basic one, like a
Well,
basic trust?
From a legal perspective, it doesn't necessarily have to take that long. Usually the most time-consuming piece of this process is the time from when they meet with us and we give them the packet and say, fill this out, gather your assets, get all this information, and that's really usually the bog down in the process. And that's where people get frustrated and stop and don't complete it, is it just becomes such an overwhelming process to get all that information together. But it needs to be done, and it's kind of eating an elephant kind of a problem.
A little at a time.
gotta eat it
But
one
don't
bite at a
drop the
time.
ball. You'll be glad you didn't drop the ball when the time comes.
I'm
Yeah.
just
right.
trying to figure out how I can assign debt to my kids after I go.
There you go.
All
Next
right.
week.
If you have a legal question for Will, you can email him at wworsham@color10.com, and he'll answer your question on the show. Thanks again,
Hey,
Will.
glad to be here.
Save me a rib. You're going to get there before me. I just know it.
Coming up, Kelly has a pin of the week for you that's sure to get you crafting this weekend. Stay with us.
Attention, please get a pencil. Announcing a hearing breakthrough, a microchip that is so small it can fit on the head of a pen. Worn hidden entirely in your ear canal, making you hear clear as a bell, and it's proudly made in the USA. Do you feel left out of conversations? Is it difficult to hear words in noisy environments? Do others say that you listen to the TV or radio too loudly? Do you feel like a bother to others due to your